Hello and welcome to Tom Turns Up. I am Tom, and today we are exploring the dark side of one of my first true loves. As a kid, there was nothing as enthralling and fascinating to me as the competition of sports. Into my teen years, I really started to fall in love with basketball. It helped that my hometown team was on one of the most dominant runs of all time. I will admit that, but the fluidity and energy of the game was like poetry in motion. As I grew up, I came to the unfortunate realization that playing basketball at a high level was far beyond my physical and mental capabilities, so I got comfortable in my working position as your everyday hoops nerd, now in my early 20s. In this submergence of all things basketball, sports, and sports media, there has been a flood of advertisements telling me that I can make real money off this so-called ball knowledge, and the lines between those who make content for ball knowers and those who try to capitalize off it has become more opaque. On Tom Turns Up, find out about the rise of sports gambling and undisclosed ads after the intro. Tom Turns Up. In 2018, the Supreme Court struck down the federal ban on sports betting, and over the past 8 years, we have seen an explosion in generated revenue and activity. So, people that wanted to gamble before this ruling had two options. You could either go to a Nevada casino that has an exception in the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act that allowed them to facilitate sports betting before 2018, or you could go to an illegal or offshore book. Either way, you had to physically travel somewhere or jump through a lot of barriers of entry to access it, and it was definitely not a regular occurrence for everyday people. However, since the ban was struck down, there's been a huge increase in spending that affects the organizations and their players. All of this spending is notoriously on advertising. And one of the most egregious examples of this is in the NBA. Many small market teams are sponsored by FanDuel Sports Network, which is a sports book. So not only are the regular TV commercials gambling ads, but all the transitions and everything that is shown on the screen has some sort of FanDuel or betting odd or some sort of stimulation that would trigger a gambling addict. This is valuable to them for many reasons, most notoriously because the sports leagues who are making a ton of money off the advertising are inclined to cooperate with the advertising agencies and provide services that would help them both. For example, the NFL recently expanded their regular season and playoff schedule to feature more games. This, in combination with the increased desire to watch games that would otherwise be unpopular or less watched, creates a monopoly for the sports leagues where they can create blackouts for regional viewers. Sports betting is also detrimental to the players. The increased stakes on games means increased scrutiny on players, and there's many players around the NBA, NFL, MLB, and NHL that are receiving death threats for their performances, and many lower level leagues are entirely sponsored by gambling companies. And without the sponsorship money, they would likely wither away and die. And many people, not just players, would lose their jobs. Even with all this advertising, there is still a huge market for offshore casinos. Many of them still leech off members before the ban was lifted, and many rely on those members telling young people that are blocked from other sites due to age limits or state location. This creates a situation where 70% of bettors using offshore books were unaware that it was completely unregulated, meaning their money is not secure and payouts are not guaranteed. To top it all off, the most dangerous part of this addiction is not even fully understood. Earlier research and many public sentiment is that the winning is the addictive part of gambling, but it's actually when you place the money down, it's the idea of how much you can win. And that's why those thoughts of Vegas rigged me, or I should have just put this in the lay instead of that, is fuel to the fire of this very serious addiction. All of this advertising led to an increase in notoriety, driving more customers, driving up revenues, and creating more investment. In 2025, there was $666 million spent across all sports leagues by sportsbooks and casinos. What is legal can be advertised, and these casinos have a huge advantage in advertisement targeting because their entire market is interested in watching sports, and that's almost exclusively where and who they advertise to. This has been exacerbated, and when I say exacerbated, that's a complete understatement. Exacerbated with the rise of prediction markets. They have found their niche in social media, particularly TikTok, where they find small micro-influencers that are already talking about a given event that they're trying to push gambling volume for, and then they'll advertise with them just to have a small segment saying, this is the Kalshi odds for this event. For example, in this most recent Super Bowl, they found a Seahawks fan with like 8,000 followers who said he was willing to put his entire life savings on the Seahawks, and Kalshi matched his bet, basically doubled what he could put down, and however exponentially increased how much he could win if he bet on Kalshi and put that he placed it on Kalshi in the video, and he did that. And he blew up to like 20 or 30,000 followers. And yes, I mean, he did get paid, but the amount of risk that they just basically incentivized this kid to do for all reward on their part and very minimal reward on his part is insane. This is especially difficult to deal with when punishment for illegal advertising is completely mismanaged. Two sportsbooks that have been fined for illegal advertising, particularly to youth, BetMGM and DraftKings, were fined respectively $150,000 and $94,000. In 2025, BetMGM made $220 million of profit, and DraftKings made $6.4 billion in revenue. This creates a situation very similar to the big pharma market, where the upside of doing illegal things is so much more valuable than the punishment that it does not even matter whatsoever. If sports gambling was just at casinos, it could only get so bad. Sports betting on your phone with access anywhere, anytime, is one of the most dangerous things we have seen in recent history. Companies have hired psychologists that help them build algorithms that send notifications when you're most susceptible to place a bet. And they offer deals that are quote-unquote too good to be true to get you to sign up in your card information on file, which is proven to cause less resistance when you continue betting on that site after that. In addition, there is plenty of research that show that exposure to betting advertisements was associated with a greater likelihood of betting and increased spending when betting. This is not just a problem for television. All across social media, many of Americans' favorite creators are sponsored by Prize Picks and the like of them. Book It with Trent, self-proclaimed mortal mega maxer and encourager of putting the mortgage on his lays, is paid a monthly allowance to gamble with Prize Picks. This means that losses and wins are paid for by the casinos themselves. This has even seeped into gaming, where notorious creators like Trainwrecks TV have switched from Twitch, who banned gambling, to Kick, who encourages gambling and is partnered with Stake, the online casino, offshore casino. Gives paid gambling sessions to creators that have juiced odds and encourage them to play for 14 hours plus at a time to their young audience. As if the in-game currency and packs and loot crates and slot wheels in the games were not enough. This means that the creator can focus specifically on tailoring to an audience in both vehicle and vocabulary and not worry about any of the financial downsides of betting that are never disclosed in advertising. The reason I chose this subject as my podcast is because many of my loved ones are affected by this very serious addiction, and I'm sure many of your loved ones are too. Gambling addicts have the highest suicide rate amongst all addictions, and this, in tie with the lack of regulation of advertising and the addictive tendencies of their service, can create a lot of circumstances that are unnecessary. So as always, reach out to a loved one to see how they're doing. Thank you for listening, and this has been Tom Turns Up.